Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is Policy Talks, produced each month by Williamson Inc., our Chamber of Commerce in Williamson County. We have guests this morning from the city of or from the town of Nolensville, I should say. We have Commissioner Lisa Garramone and Town Manager Victor Lay, and our subject is a spotlight on Nolensville. Lots of things going on in Nolensville, growing fast, and looking forward to finding out more about your vision for Nolensville and what we should expect the next time we drive down Nolensville Road. Commissioner Garramone, you're fairly new to the commission. I think elected last September. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
What moved you to get involved in politics?
Well, so when I moved to Nolansville, we had a brand new neighborhood, and I was involved with trying to help my neighbors with some of the struggles we were having with the developer. And that required me to go to commission meetings. And of course, at that time, it was BOMA meetings and planning commission meetings. And I had a quick education in what was going on. And through that process, I wanted to get involved to try to fix a few things that I saw that could be improved. So here I am.
Right. And I'm cheating here a little bit. I'm a newspaper clipping hound sometimes, and I've got the questionnaire, excuse me, that the Tennessean had on you when you were running for alderman, or for, I'll get that right before this show's over with, for commissioner. I'll correct myself. And it looks like you moved to Nolensville maybe 4 years ago. That right?
Actually, it'll be 5 years in December. So yep, that's pretty close.
What attracted you to Nolensville? Why did y'all choose Nolensville as a home?
We had lived in the southern part of Davidson County for quite a long time. I moved here in 1994. And so I had come down to Nolensville and visited the couple that ran the bed and breakfast, the home place bed and breakfast. My aunt and uncle used to stay with them. And so I had just kind of gotten to know about the area from, driving around on the weekend. And my husband and I liked it. We wanted to get to Williamson County specifically. We have 2 children and wanted to get them into the school system here. And so that's what we did.
Right. Our other guest this morning is Victor Lay. Victor, you are now the town manager in Nolensville. And you've been there now, I think, a relatively short time. When did you take that seat?
I started January 19th, so I've now got 5 months in. So it's been very good so far.
Great. Now you were in Spring Hill, and the town, I believe, administrator was the title down there. Is that right?
City administrator. Yep.
And how long were you there?
A little over 11 years.
So you've seen a town grow from relatively small to almost a metropolis now. And do you see the same things going on in Nolensville that you experienced down at Spring Hill?
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities in that explosive growth, going from a relatively small community to a very blossoming community. And fortunately, I think Nolensville has an opportunity to put some things in place that Spring Hill didn't know at the time, even 10, 15 years ago, or maybe closer to 15 to 20 years ago, when Spring Hill was really starting to blossom out, and they didn't recognize some of the things that were coming. And Nolensville has the time to get some things in place for that.
Good. Well, personal endorsement here, but I think they got the right man for the job. And
thank you.
Your experience should be valuable as they go through some of the same things that you saw at Spring Hill. I normally go by first names. Lisa, is it all right to call you Lisa?
Please do. That's great.
Now the mayor was not able to be with us this morning. Derek Adams, also elected in the same election you were elected in. He was an alderman for a couple of years prior to that. But you all made a big change in the city government or the town government to go from a mayor alderman form of government to a city commissioner form of government, with the town manager as kind of the CEO, I guess you would say. What was the motivation behind that change, and how do you see that changing the way things are done in Nolensville?
There were multiple reasons behind that change, I think. And I think the folks who supported it for a variety of reasons. At the end of the day, we really wanted to make sure that in terms of the elected officials, that the power was evenly spread, which is the case with the commission system. And we needed somebody full-time that could take on the growth and the work and everything that needs to be done, because the commissioners, not everybody knows the commissioner is not a full-time job. It is a part-time job. We all have day jobs. And so we really needed somebody who can be there 8 to 5, really working with developers or, any of the departments that need that support. And so we really felt like this was a better system for the next phase of our growth.
Is it working well so far?
So far, it's working, I think, great. I mean, you might want to ask Victor how he thinks it's working. But, I think we've got a board of 5 folks, and we're really working hard to work well together to get to the best decisions for the town as a whole, and not have any one person's personal views or desires, override anybody else's. That we're really looking at it from the vantage point of trying to support the majority of our citizens.
Victor, I think Spring Hill was a mayor alderman form of government. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And so are you seeing a lot of differences between the two types of government, or from a practical matter, is there a huge difference?
There's some subtle differences between the two. In both respects, they have an administrator or someone who is there in the mayor automatic form, which is what existed before. That position is really set by an ordinance and can come and go at the direction of the BOMA. So in the absence of a town administrator, the mayor takes a greater role. With this particular form, it's written into the TCA code, and so it's a legitimate part of the government. And so there's that inherent difference, is that it's a position that's it's legislated, and right. So by its nature, it gives it a little bit more influence and a little bit more voice, where on the other system, the administrator does deal with the day-to-day, but doesn't have as much maybe influence into assisting the elected officials in directing policy. And while the manager in this case is not a voting member, it does give them a little bit stronger voice, I believe, in helping to educate and provide information, and so that those elected officials can make the best decision possible.
Well, this may be an incorrect interpretation, but let me try my understanding of maybe what you're saying here. Is that in a mayor alderman form of government, the mayor takes the lead in forming policy and priorities and that sort of thing in many cases, whereas in the commission form of government with you as town manager, you maybe have a little more influence and take a little more active role in forming policy. Is there any?
I think that's sufficient to say that it's like that. the way that this elected group is working together. They're all bringing information to the table. So it's really, as Commissioner Garramone described, it's really less about any one, and it's more about the group. And it truly is the group think when it comes to developing policy. And you can go and look at almost any of the council meetings, and you find that everyone who is willing to put their voice out there from the elected officials has an equal footing, and they you see it in those meetings, because they'll change each other's minds on various issues, and it's across the board. So it's I personally feel like that the manager commission charter is probably one of the best out there in giving good equal representation and good groupthink to the elected body.
It seems to work well in Brentwood for many, many years.
Absolutely.
Commissioner, are you in agreement with everything we've kind of concluded there?
Yes. And I think, it's interesting. I've come into meetings after having done my own research on things and may think that I've got my mind made up on something and how I'm going to vote. And then, one of my fellow commissioners will bring something up that I didn't come across or I hadn't thought of. And it will change my mind if it's, significant enough to be considered that way. So, and I think that's happened probably for all of us at some point over the last several months.
Now that September election last year saw several new faces come on to the commission, maybe three out of five or 4 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when that happens, it appears there's a kind of a change of direction, or maybe a change of philosophy that comes with that. How would you describe the philosophy of the maybe I should call them newcomers, but how will that change the way we see Nolensville developing?
I think that and it's tough to say that everybody on the commission would necessarily agree with this, so I'll try to take a tempered approach with this. But out of the 5 of us, I think we all want to see some positive and managed growth for Nolansville. So we need to add some commercial in our developments. We're looking for some mixed use developments, some additional things that are going to fill in some gaps for the citizens. Right now, a lot of our residents have to drive to Cool Springs and Smyrna to get a lot of their goods and services. And so we want to add to what's available to them closer to home. That will help us support our current businesses, because, the more traffic we can keep here, they'll get more visits from the residents as well as, adding additional places for people to live. I mean, the reality is Nashville and all of the surrounding areas are incredibly hot right now for folks to move here. And, we'd like to have a bit of that, growth come to us as well, because it's going to help us continue to provide things like our brand new paid fire department. So we want to be able to provide those services that the residents expect and at the level that they expect.
Right. The you mentioned the fire department, and Nolensville had a volunteer fire department that's worked reasonably well for many years, but according to Wikipedia, I think in 2010, Nolensville had a little over 5,000 residents. Victor, you told me the other day, how many do you anticipate this latest census measuring Nolensville at?
We are hoping that number is somewhere in that 13 to 14,000 range.
So pretty much doubled over the last 10 years.
Correct.
That's really fast growth, and certainly challenging. Victor, you have to pay the bills, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've got to make ends meet.
The tax base is probably one of your focuses at all times. So currently, probably most of your tax base is property taxes, residential property taxes. Is that right?
That's a very significant portion of it is the property tax. Property tax, state shared sales, regular sales tax. Those are our two largest ones.
How would commercial development affect what y'all are able to do?
So one of the things that Nolansville is lacking is some of the large commercial that people want to come and shop daily, like a grocery store. That's one of the pieces that we are really wanting to get in. The generation of sales tax back to the community would be enormous. What we would expect on a major shopping, a major grocery store to step into the community, we could expect annual sales, just their gross sales, to be, 20 million a year, something like that. The sales tax off of that is pretty significant, and would come back to helping the town to the tune of somewhere between maybe on the low end, maybe a couple of $100,000 to maybe even $500,000 a year, depending on the volume of sales that actually end up occurring through there.
That's pretty significant, especially after you've added a full-time fire department.
Correct.
One of the most surprising things I learned when I was an alderman in the city of Franklin many years ago was how many people it takes to staff one position 24 hours a day. Takes about, I think it was about 4 full-time positions just to keep somebody in one slot 24 hours a day. Is that right?
That's correct. You have to do it 24 hours a day. You have 3 shifts. So there's 3 people for each one of that. And then you really need one in the wings to cover any days off. And so it's right at 4 people per position.
So staffing a fire department is a fairly expensive proposition, isn't it?
It's very expensive for the one station that we have. And right now we're only running 9 full-time firefighters plus the chief. Staffing that's costing us about $1.5 million a year.
Wow. Now, how many employees did you have prior to initiating the fire department?
We have 35 employees before the fire department.
You didn't double your employee base, but you increased it substantially. Commissioner, why? I mean, apparently the volunteers have done a very good job for many years. Nolensville, I think, is the only city in the county that requires sprinklers in all the houses that are built. So why a full-time fire department? Why was that a priority?
Well, so as we've grown, it has become increasingly difficult for the volunteers to respond to all the calls they're getting. And it's not just fire calls that they get. In fact, I'd have to ask Chief Wendrow, but I don't think we have as many fire calls as we have other types of calls. And so with a full-time fire department, if I'm not mistaken on this, they're able to have EMTs as well at some point. And so part of this is to get us to a point where we can have emergency services like ambulance, et cetera, down the road. I know there's been, times when an ambulance is taking a little bit too long to get to us because we are reliant on Williamson County. And we don't have that in the Bay here right now. So that's really part of the goal. But we want the fire department to be able to respond within the allotted time that they are supposed to in order to serve the residents. When you go from 5,000 to what we think is going to be 14, your calls are going to go up, and you can't force volunteers to be there. Now, mind you, they were there. And we're going to keep those volunteers on. So we've got a combination department initially to get us off the ground. It's just really about providing better service overall.
Good. Circling back to the commercial development, you drive down Nolensville Road, it's a little hard to tell when you leave Metro Nashville and enter the town of Nolensville. There's a lot of commercial development just north of you there that's not in your city limits. So is your goal to move similar types of development on down through Nolensville? What, I mean, you've got the historic district there that's, I think, pretty important to most of you on the commission. But what would Nolensville look like? Would it look like more of what's north of the city limits, or is it going to be different?
I don't think that the overall desire of the board is to have it look precisely like what is north of us in Davidson County. I can definitely speak for myself. That's not my goal. I'm looking for us to provide some very specific and targeted commercial needs for the residents. I would like for it to look more similar to what you might see on Carruthers Parkway in Cool Springs. Or over in the new McEwen area with the Aspen Grove development. So, you know, a variety of those types of things where you've got appropriate buffering so that I really want us to see a difference when you're coming down Nolensville Road where you go, oh, wait a minute, what just happened? Something's a little different here. You know, especially when you get into the historic district. Right. So, you know, we want to preserve what we've got there and continue to add to it and make it very much a town center or a village feel. And so we're looking at all of the zoning as it relates to that. We did have a moratorium in effect and went through all of the village zoning to try and make some appropriate changes there. And now we've got our major thoroughfare plan that's going to help us determine where do we need connectivity that we don't have it currently to help move the traffic through so that, you know, we know where we can put all this great commercial that wants to come to us, right. But not clog up Nolensville Road any more than it already is. So it's a bit of a daunting task, and we're trying to make sure we're not, it's difficult to get everything done in the right order. I think that's probably the biggest challenge that I've seen so far, and making sure that we've considered all of the components of that, you know, so that residents are happy with what they get at the end of the day.
Now, here's your curveball.
Okay.
The areas you mentioned, McEwen, Carruthers, those sorts of places, all have a lot of multifamily, either apartments or condominiums. And to be fair, I think Franklin is trying to locate as many people close to where they work as they possibly can, because that means they don't have to drive on the streets if right. They can walk to work. Is Nolensville going to have apartments and condominiums?
That is the big debate right now. I think condominiums are really not as big of a debate for us. I think folks are pretty comfortable with townhomes and condominiums. Apartments are the big debate. I do think that with the growth that we are going to experience, that it is inevitable that we're going to have some apartments. The key factor is going to be, where are they going to be, and how are they going to look from a design perspective, and, you know, how do we attract the best developers in here to help make it continue to look like what we want it to look like for Nolensville?
Well, that's certainly that's a balancing act, and the city of Franklin has gone back and forth on that subject many times over the years, and so I'm sure you will too. But
yeah, it's probably the most contested conversation that we have.
I can imagine. Now, of course, just you've grown so far by just single family residential development. And the schools are sized, I guess, for more single family residential. Victor, I'm going to move to you here just a minute, but will the schools handle much more residential development, or is that going to put more pressure on the schools that are in Nolensville area? And let me say, you have got one of the most beautiful high school, middle school campuses in the county there. Something certainly to be proud of. But is it at capacity, or do you have room for a lot more kids?
It's pretty tight right now, and we're very aware of that. So one of the things that we have that Victor actually has helped us do, and I found out yesterday, is that we've got Williamson County Schools coming to one of our meetings to help us understand what their plan is for their growth. And we want to talk to them about what our plans are for our growth to make sure that all of that lines up, because we don't want to do a disservice to the children in the process of this, and have the schools so overcrowded that it takes away from their education and their learning opportunities. So we also have some current proposals that are hopefully coming through, where developers are offering to donate land for schools. And so I think that will, or to set aside the land so that Williamson County can purchase it and build the school. So I think we've got a pretty good handle on getting the right people to the table to make sure that we don't put too much pressure on there. Victor, did I leave anything out that you think that should be added to that?
I think you gave a really good synopsis of that, and with the key point that we know that as we grow, it's going to put pressure on the schools. I mean, that's just inherent, whether it's single family residential or if it's an apartment complex of some kind. We know that that's going to increase the pressure on the school system. As we allow those developments or regulate those developments, it's our goal to make sure that they provide some equity back to the school system, and really not just the school system, but back to the town in the various areas and arenas that we need that equity to be provided. And so through, as you mentioned, some land donations maybe to the school system, or could be even donations of equipment to the fire department. If they want a building larger than what we can currently manage or have equipment to reach, then maybe some of these larger developments need to bring to the table collectively enough so that we could acquire a new piece of fire equipment or something like that. So we're really trying to take a holistic look when these developments come in to what impact they bring to the town, and then how are they going to mitigate that impact.
Great. Going along with growth, my favorite topic is traffic. And every time Franklin adds another traffic light, I just try to find another way to get there. But what, 2 traffic lights now? Is that accurate?
2? Well, we probably have a few more than 2. We have
I think we have 3, Victor. I don't think it's not that many.
I was going to say we got 3. I was thinking more on the north side, but the last one I was thinking about is actually not in our town limits. So
yeah.
The traffic is going to be it's probably already somewhat of a problem. And if you continue to grow at the pace you're growing, it's going to be, more of a problem. We know. What are the plans to deal with that? Victor, the other day when we were talking, you mentioned a major thoroughfare plan that I think you all are working on. Tell us about that and what that might look like.
So the major thoroughfare plan will take a look at the community as a whole and start to just go back and reevaluate all of our major routes to look at if we have them classified correctly. Are they arterials? Are they collectors? Are they local streets? And then also to review those to make sure that as we develop those roads over time, that when development occurs, that enough right-of-way is reserved so that those roads can be what we hope those roads can be configured in the future, so that we can ultimately minimize our cost in right-of-way acquisition, and we can put our costs really into the development of the roadway and the character that roadway ought to look at. As part of that study, we're also looking at alternative analysis for north-south travel. You mentioned traffic, and yes, that's a problem. But that's a problem that I think Nolensville has the opportunity to find solutions before it gets too egregious. And so that's coupled with this major thoroughfare plan is some alternative analysis about how we would go and develop alternative north-south routes in order to kind of mitigate that and give people additional ways to travel. We have a connectivity policy, which quite honestly, a lot of the neighborhoods don't like, because they don't like people driving through their neighborhood to get to somewhere else. But the fact is that for any of the communities in the hub of Middle Tennessee, you really need to have that, because there is so much car travel demand going here and there that the main roads can't handle it. And so you need to know what those back ways are in order to get from one place to another. And a good connectivity policy that is respectful to, it's not trying to make the main roads through a subdivision become thoroughfares. We want to, make sure that there's traffic calming there, and that people are respecting speed limits and things like that. But part of the solution is lots of connectivity throughout the community.
Commissioner, what's your vision? And let's just ask for your personal opinion here. What is the best way for Nolensville to deal with traffic and plan for the future there?
Well, I am in complete agreement with everything that Victor just said. I mean, those are the things that we're studying and trying to figure out and look at. In addition to that, I think, especially for the, I don't know, those that are, able to bike and walk, that we've got an amazing trail system. And so the more that we can continue to connect that and provide opportunities for people not to have to get in their car, I think that helps as well. Of course, that's not going to work for everybody. Not everybody wants to get on their bike and ride up to a restaurant or to a store. But for those that do, we want to provide that. And I do think it's going to take a lot of education for the residents to make sure that they understand why we are making the decisions that we're making. And one of the things that we've really been trying to work on is making sure that, even when we're in a public meeting, if we're making a decision that we've discussed in another public meeting, I try to sometimes make it a point to say, okay, before we do this, anybody who's watching this, if you haven't heard the prior discussion, these are the reasons we're doing this, just as a reminder. So I think the more that we can involve the public in terms of understanding and having some input too, that's very helpful. So I know as part of the major thoroughfare plan, the company that we've enlisted to help us with that is going to have some input from the citizens, and I think that will really help in terms of understanding.
Victor, the other day when we talked, you mentioned, well, you and I probably both remember the discussions about a Sam Ridley Parkway, McEwen Drive connector to connect the folks that live in Rutherford County, work in Cool Springs and Franklin, that all have to, right now, just about have to come through Nolensville to get there. And I understand you say there is a another discussion that's bubbling up now about some type of connector between Cool Springs and Smyrna. Tell us what those discussions are looking like and what that might produce.
So right now, those discussions are preliminary, and really, Smyrna is the one that is really pushing those discussions or driving those discussions considerably. Um, Smyrna and Brentwood and Franklin have entertained some of those discussions in the past couple of years. But most recently, what they have focused on is looking to do a joint study of evaluating and determining what is the best corridor between those communities. And as you mentioned, Nolensville sits right in the middle. So the likely corridor is probably going to be at our doorstep. And so it's from my perspective, it's very important that we're sitting at the table as a part of those discussions so that we can to make sure that that corridor is where we need it to be, that it is a design that we need it to be. Eventually, someone's going to fund it, whether that ends up being locals or the MPO or something like that. You know, we just need to have a seat at the table early on in the process to ensure Nolensville's interests with regard to that corridor are met.
Commissioner, any thoughts about that as far as your vision of what that might look like?
Yeah, so I agree that we need to be at the table immediately. I think there are probably 2 or 3 different iterations of where that might be. I'm not ready yet to say which one I think is the best because I'd like to hear a little bit more information on why these different routes were chosen. Off the cuff, a couple of them don't make sense because I'm trying to figure out, how does that work with all the right-of-way issues that we might have. And so it's a little bit hard to visualize a larger, connector road going through some of the areas that they're talking about. So my hope is that it's a little bit further south than what they've at least initially brought to the table, to protect some of the current homes and schools and whatnot that are there. But, if it comes down to it and we can see that it's going to make good sense and the way that the roads are going to be built, if we've got the right sidewalks and we've got the right crosswalks and we've got, the appropriate things that are going to keep everybody safe, then I might be more comfortable with one of the other options. So we'll just have to see where that lands.
Right. And Victor, from your experience in Spring Hill, you know that these major road projects rarely happen without state money, and in some cases, money from something you mentioned a minute ago called the MPO. Tell us about the MPO, how that might impact some of this, and how that was helpful to Spring Hill in getting some of the projects going down there that y'all needed so bad.
So the MPO is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and actually in the past few years we've changed the name of that board actually to the Transportation Policy Board, as it rolled actually out from under Metro Nashville into the Greater Nashville Regional Council as the kind of the head of that group. Well, what that board is it's a policy making board or a review board of mayors throughout. I think there's 7 counties, 11 counties, something like that all come together and fit. It's all around the hub of Davidson, all the ring counties as well. And we sit and they look at the transportation needs for the area, and they set up priorities inside that. They also are able to help redirect some federal monies that are given to the state, particularly to this body. They help to direct those into various projects. And so what our goal is to make sure that the projects that Nolansville has, the needs that Nolansville has, are viewed as a priority by working through that group. That group also has influence with TDOT. And so once again, even if it's a project that's on Nolensville Road, that being a TDOT roadway, it is the goal of our interaction with that group to have the others understand the need and the priority, so that TDOT understands the need and the priority, and it becomes one of their preferred projects. And those projects, as you mentioned, they don't happen quickly, and they take a lot of money, and they take a lot of agencies' involvement. And I think that's another aspect that Nolansville is stepping back and looking at, and realizing, hey, we're going to have to be a player in order to bring these projects forward. Most recently, we took a small step toward that, where there is one of the new traffic signals. Actually, as I recounted in my mind, we have 4. we have a brand new one at York Road in Williams, and so Lisa's counting those now.
I know. I'm like, wait a second. I guess we do? Yeah, you're right.
So we have a brand new one, but that particular,
not so many you can't keep up with them. So.
That particular intersection was not slated by TDOT until the fall of 2022 in order to be reconfigured and have a traffic signal put in. And instead of just waiting, the town is taking a proactive approach and said, look, let's at least put in a temporary one so that we can deal with the safety issue that's going on today, while the state is working out their design and getting their funds together to build the permanent one. And so it's looking at projects from that vein, saying, okay, we're going to have a little skin in the game in order to move these things forward, whether that ends up being acquisition of right-of-way, or the pre-design or things of that nature, in order to help to supplement the process, to help move it forward. If we rely solely on TDOT or some other one, then it will literally take years, maybe decades, in order to get projects moved forward. So we have to be a group that wants to take a little ownership and say, okay, this is the priority, and here's what we bring to the table.
Now, Commissioner, now that you have a full-time town manager, do you think he's going to have to spend quite a bit of time working through the systems at TDOT and the MPO to, is that going to be beneficial to Nolensville to getting some of these things done?
Absolutely, it is. In fact, in our latest meeting, I proposed that a few of us should be on a rotation with him, so that not only is Victor at the table, but one of the commissioners is there on some sort of, because, again, we all have full-time jobs too. So, rather than appointing one person to go with him all the time, can we rotate that responsibility? And that way the folks that are in the room get to know all of us. And, if we're coming forward with a similar voice that matches what Victor is saying, my hope is that through building those relationships and spending that time, that, our voice is heard more than it has been. And it needs to be, because, a lot of folks are coming through Nolansville and Middle Tennessee, whether it be east and west or north and south. So we want them to have a great experience and to be able to move through here easily and stop in and, visit our businesses and all of that stuff. So if it becomes too difficult, then, we'll have folks that won't even come this way. So we really want to try to be very proactive with that.
Victor, you and when we were talking, you mentioned that east-west connector, and Commissioner, you mentioned this too, but could possibly be pushed quite a bit further south than the current core of Nolensville. Your beautiful new high school, middle school campus is further south, and it's kind of off the beaten path. Is there a possibility you could push this east-west connector there where the schools might benefit from it? Is that a possible goal there?
I don't know that it's our goal to try to push it to where it runs necessarily right beside the school. But I think we want to look at it from a larger perspective as it comes through Nolansville, to see if it is located appropriately to where it benefits us in a commercial way, without disrupting the core area that that Commissioner Garramone described earlier, and the design of the road, that if it does come by the schools, that the design of the road is such that it provides a very safe course right beside that school. We wouldn't want to have something that is going to, especially if it's the high school, as our young teenage drivers are turning out onto the road, we don't want to put something and create something that's a hazard for them right out of the parking lot. You know, we want it to be something that's going to be a safe corridor that enhances the town, not just provides a thoroughfare between two external communities.
Well, Commissioner, is that that probably consistent with your views as well, I would assume?
Definitely. I've got two children that are on that campus, one at the middle school and one at the high school. And I see, because I live in the neighborhood right next to it, so I see what goes on in terms of the traffic today on a regular basis in my neighborhood with folks coming through the neighborhood, as well as what happens on, the more major thoroughfares around it. So I really want to make sure that it's very well thought out, and that whatever we do is enhancing the safety for the kids that are going to that campus. It has to be that way. I mean, we're already working on some traffic calming currently to help support that. And that light that Victor mentioned before is also going to help with those teenage drivers that are going to the high school now, because it's right near the campus. So I would love for it to enhance the commercial, and hopefully it will be, in the right spot for that, but also that safety just has to be paramount.
We're in a hot housing market. I think in almost every neighborhood you can imagine. Nolensville, I would assume, is participating in that hot market. Victor, how many building permits did you have last year? How many do you expect to have in 2021?
So last year we had around 284 new home permits. Going forward this year, the number of starts that we've had since January has actually been a little bit lower than what we would have thought, but part of that, I think, is due to the cost of building materials. And so we've reached out to the development community to try to understand what their thought process is, what their plans are. What they tell us is that for our fiscal year, which starts July 1 to next June, that they're expecting to see that number probably be closer to the 280 to 300 mark again for that fiscal year. So we're expecting that the next 6 months is considerably different than this first 6 months that we've looked at.
Well, if my math is right, and you have roughly 300 new homes a year, 2 adults and a child per home is going to put you at about 1,000 new residents per year, probably 2 cars per house, so another 600 cars on your roadways. Commissioner, and I've got a little inside information here, but I understand you're looking at a new zoning district called planned development. And tell us how that would work and why you are proposing a new type of zoning district there.
So the planned development zoning is somewhat of a stopgap measure for us currently, as we're re-looking at all of the zoning to make sure that it's supportive of the vision that we're trying to create. So it really allows for, in a particular spot, if the zoning doesn't really fit what somebody wants to do, and they've got a really cool, unique project they want to bring to us that we think would fit the overall vision, they can utilize that planned development zoning to bring it forward. And we've got a lot more flexibility in there to work with the developer and come up with some compromises that are going to create, hopefully, the goal is that it creates a much more enhanced development overall. So without getting into too many specifics on it, because I don't have it sitting right in front of me, I think that's probably what you're looking for in terms of what was the purpose and the overarching reason for it. Victor, is that cover it, you think?
Yeah, I think so. The quick synopsis is that just gives the elected officials, when they're looking at development, a lot more flexibility. The developers can be a lot more creative. And that, I think, brings some really neat type developments that are different than other things that we have here in the town of Nolensville already.
Well, I don't know if you can see and hear me now.
Yes.
We can hear you. We just can't see you.
I'm going to step out of the picture just a minute. My battery is running low on the laptop. So, Victor, the state instituted what we call urban growth boundaries around all of our towns and cities to somewhat limit the boundaries that a town can annex into. You mentioned that's being looked at again. I think I was on a board, must have been 20, 25 years ago, where those boundaries were set within Williamson County. And so given the current boundaries that Nolansville currently has, is there enough room to continue this pace of development, or do you see a need to expand the urban growth boundary in Nolansville further south? You can't go north, can't go east, can't go west very well. I guess you could go east, but what do you see there?
I think on the urban growth boundaries, we will review them. Right now, we're looking at the technical side of them. Where are the limits of and the likeliness of utilities? Because that will be something that is that really drives whether or not property is ultimately developable, whether that's a denser residential development or a less dense residential development. If you don't have an area that can get sewer, then obviously a septic driven subdivision is going to be much less dense than even some of the least density properties that we have currently in the town. So that's our first step, is to evaluate those. We will be looking also in that evaluation at some of the other natural boundaries, ridge lines, things of that nature, things that may end up being a practical limit as well. And we'll just evaluate them. Right now, the town actually I would say the town has ample room inside its urban growth boundary to grow considerably. We have actually, you mentioned going east. We've got some areas that we can grow to the east. We've got some areas that we can grow to the southeast, and even a little bit to the west. Not a lot, but a little bit to the west. And so right now they're okay. But what we will be evaluating is what do they need to be for the next 20 years. And you're right. It was 20 years ago when Williamson County set these, and they really haven't been discussed for the last 20 years. They've just kind of been set.
Now, here's your curveball, Victor. Has Triune got anything to worry about?
I don't think Triune has anything to worry about. I don't think it's our intent nor capability of getting down to that area.
Commissioner, is that consistent with your understanding of the commission's views on things like that?
Yes, I mean, maybe, 50 years from now, if they wanted to join forces, that might be fine, but I think it would be up to them. I don't think we're looking to go down and swallow them up. So
that, I think that's a kind of a good place to wrap up this morning. We're about out of time. Really have enjoyed getting to know what's going on out in Nolensville. And now the mayor was unable to join us this morning. We hate that. Victor, Commissioner, is there anything you think he would have liked us to have said that we missed?
He would want us to plug the Star-Spangled Banner Celebration, which is July 3rd at 6 p.m. We're going to have bands. It's going to be a great community night out, a great fireworks show. And so we just want to encourage folks, if you haven't visited Nolansville for a while, you need to come by and visit. Come by, go into the historic area, stop at some of those shops there. We've got some really neat retail places there that are unique to Williamson County. And just folks need to visit and see what Nolansville is all about.
That's great. Commissioner Victor, we really appreciate the time you've taken out of your busy schedules to share all this information with us, and look forward to seeing you around the county as we see you grow and develop out there. I also want to thank Creed Henderson and the crew over at WCTV for making us look good every month. Creed, you do an amazing job, and just tell the Mayor Anderson that you need a raise. I also appreciate Tom Lawrence over at WAKM getting us on the air there simultaneously. Our sponsors and help in a financial way make this happen. AT&T, our friend Dennis Wagner with AT&T, and over at Vanderbilt University, Lynn Maddox. We appreciate your help and your support. Couldn't do this without a chamber staff that's amazing. Matt Largen has got a great team going. Sorry that Kel McDowell couldn't be with us this morning, but Annalisa Roberts has gotten us all connected. And Annalisa, we appreciate that. Nancy Conway, Jenna, all the team out there, we appreciate what you do. Our next show scheduled for July 30th. Dr. Darrell Ampley over at Columbia State called me yesterday. He said you can go with a live audience again over at Columbia State. And we've been anxious to get that notice. Looking forward to being in person live with a lot of the folks that enjoy visiting with us and asking questions. We will open it back up to questions from the audience, but over at the community room at the beautiful new Columbia State campus on July 30th, our guest will be Mayor Rogers Anderson, the mayor of Williamson County. Thank you again very much. Look forward to seeing everyone again next month. And that's all we have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
thank you.